All right, so we got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people on the call so far. All right, so what we have done is we had a spreadsheet or like a form that you guys could fill out with questions. So if you guys had any very specific questions, you wanted to know exactly what they were. And what we can do is go through all those questions on the call and make sure that you guys all, we're going through every single one of those. And then if there's some other questions that you guys have, what you can do is you can raise your hand. So if you can open the chat box, at the very bottom of that chat box, you'll see something that says raise hand. So you can click on that, and then that will enable us to actually, we'll see you, and then we can unmute you, and you can ask a question that way.
Yeah, and you can just write in the chat box as well. You just write a question.
That's exactly right.
So this is great. I like how Amy's got her camera working. I love this. This is terrific. Technology at its best.
What do you think? Should everyone open their camera, Robbie? I'm cool with that.
If anybody wants to open up their camera, please do. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so we can turn. I'm going to turn on everyone's camera. Let's see if I can do that. You can do that from your end, Robbie.
I can turn on everybody's camera?
Yeah, so if you click on chat on the right-hand side, it has like a microphone button and a video button, and you can enable video for everyone. There we go. We got Ruth, we got George, we got Amy. What's up, guys?
Terrific.
All right, if you guys can turn on your video, we are totally cool with that. I hope my computer doesn't crash.
No, I think it's working. Margie says, my computer's so old, I don't think I have one. That's funny. Great. People can see the chat box. This is terrific. Love it.
Technology.
Guys, I love what I'm seeing in the Facebook group. A lot of great activity. It's really fun to see.
It totally is. All right. Let's see. Robbie, can you turn on the video for Mark and Peg and Doug and Lyle and everyone?
I honestly, I don't. Let me see. Hold on here. I think they have to control their own video.
Okay, so you guys, if you want to turn on your video, on the bottom left of this window, there's a video camera button, and you can click on the arrow next to it, and then it'll say, turn on camera. So if you guys want to do that, by all means, go for it. Lyle, we got you. Diana, Carolina, we can see you guys. What's up?
Perfect. See, everybody's got to remind me where people are located. Amy, where are you located?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Ruth, where are you?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. George?
Kiev, Ukraine.
Ukraine. What time is it there?
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
Whoa,
wow.
That's dedication right there. Look at that.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Diana and Carolina, where are you guys?
We are from the Canary Islands.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes, Diana, I've talked to you on Skype before. Yes, good to see you.
That is terrific. Okay, Lyle, where are you located? I don't know, maybe Lyle can't hear us.
Lyle, you can turn on your audio in bottom left.
We'll come back to you. Let's see. Darnetta, where are you at?
Philadelphia.
Philly.
Yeah,
There
Philly.
we go. All right.
Philly's in the house.
Gina. Is your real name Gina?
Yes.
Okay, where are you from?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay, look at that. Some of these.
We got a lot of Pennsylvanians here, huh?
Yeah. Let's see. Doug, where are you from?
Australia, New York.
What?
Which one? Australia?
Yeah, which one?
I want to try and beat the guy from Estonia, but I'm closer than that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Funny. All right. George, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh,
there
actually,
it is.
same person. I got you. These mics are moving around. I like your those pictures are moving. Okay. Let's see. Danae.
Hi, I am from Turlock, California. It's near Modesto.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Here, let's look at the
Lori.
video.
Lori's iPhone.
I'm from Arlington, Texas.
Arlington, Texas. Okay. Beautiful. Mary, good to see you.
Welcome.
How are you, Mary?
I'm good. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in Hollyweird.
Beautiful.
Hollyweird.
Did you go to the farmers market this morning?
No, I had class in Santa Monica.
Okay, that happens.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Peg Odoms. Where are you from?
Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit, Michigan. All right. I like it.
Yeah. Got some East Coast.
I'm not so sure about
That's good. Let's see. TD, where are you from? You hear us, TD?
TD. Who's TD?
I don't know. It's just what the name says, TD.
Yeah. How about Margie? Can you hear us? Negator.
No. Okay. Carol, where are you from? Carol, can you hear us?
TD says no microphone in Pennsylvania. Gosh, lots of Pennsylvanians here. I love this.
Oh, this is great. Anne, where are you from? I hope you can hear us. Some people might not have a microphone, so that's fine.
Yep.
Let's see. Susan, where are you from? Susan might not have a mic. Well,
This is Kirsten. I can hear you.
oh, good. Okay. Where are you from?
What are you doing?
I'm from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Terrific.
Awesome. Margie says she's from Utah. Cool. Margie, if you can get your microphone working, go for it. Can you unmute Giselle, Robbie?
I sure can.
Cool.
Giselle, where are you from?
I'm going to put you for the kitty.
Not sure. Hopefully you can hear us.
Okay, then we got a couple people on the phone. We got Bonnie Brandon. Where are you from, Bonnie?
Bonnie might not be able to hear us as well. That's
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, maybe
Right,
they
so-
might not want
She
to
has
talk.
to hit *6 to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you.
we can.
Hi there, you lucky devils. This is Teresa Keys. I just joined via phone because my internet is out. And they announced at the end of the thing that you have to you come on muted automatically. You have to hit *6 to mute or unmute. So I'll mute myself again now. I'm out in Michigan, so I'll mute myself now.
All right. Awesome. Glad you're
We
with
can
us.
also mute and unmute people, so that's kind of what we've been doing here. But yes, if anybody wants to unmute themselves, you can do it from your phone, *6, or hit the keys in the lower left. You can sort of control things on the computer or iPhone or Android. So
Right. So we got
Yeah.
a total of 23 people on the call right now. And what's going to happen over the course of the next, hour to 90 minutes is that your screen will constantly be changing. Some people are going to be coming on, some people are going to be coming off. And so it's going to kind of get reshuffled. But overall, what we want to use this time for is, number one, to see and meet each other in person, because we love to interact with people, even if it's just, seeing your faces through the internet. And then hopefully you guys will also get an opportunity to see the faces of other people that are also going through this process. In the group, we got type 1s, we got pre-diabetes, we got type 1.5s, we got type 2s. So everybody comes from a slightly different, I'll say diabetes background, or there's a different flavor of diabetes. But the fact of the matter is that we're all united here in the idea that we're focusing on a low-fat, plant-based, whole foods approach. And all of us are striving for the same thing, which is increased insulin sensitivity. So as we are, Robbie and I are sitting in the Facebook group all day long, really looking at these posts and trying to really understand, what is happening with you guys. What's going well? What is difficult? What do you need help with? We want to make ourselves available for anything that you guys need help with. And we also want to help, we want to be here to celebrate all these small little micro victories that come along the way. So let's use this time together to be totally open and vulnerable and honest with each other and say, hey, these things are going well, but the worst part about this process is blah. Let's focus on the things that you really need help with, because once you verbalize that, I can guarantee you that other people are also going to have similar issues as you. So let's do our best about being open about this whole, this whole process, both the pros and the cons, and we can run from there. Robbie, can you also record this meeting just so that people can?
Yep, it's already recording. It started recording right when we started it.
Perfect. Okay, beautiful.
Cool.
All right, beautiful. So like I said earlier, we have this form that some of you guys have filled out. We got like 9 people filling it out. So what we're going to do is just go through all the questions that you guys have put in there. And then, if you have more questions, you can always raise your hand. And the way to raise your hand is to click on, how do you raise your hand here?
I think just write something in the chat box.
Yeah, you can write something in the chat box.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
fine.
write it in the chat box.
Okay.
Although somebody
also
raised their hand successfully, Lyle did.
There's a button in the bottom middle, participants. So if you click on that, then it'll bring up a list of who's in the call. And then at the bottom of that, there's a little button that says raise hand. So either type in the chat box or raise your hand, and then we can get to you directly. All right, so let's start at the top. We got Danae. Danae had basically said, when you guys go out to eat, how do you ensure that you are eating what is best for you? Danae, phenomenal question. This is probably one of the most asked questions, period. So the question really is, well, when you go out to eat, what are you supposed to do, right? Because the outside world doesn't really provide low-fat or plant-based or whole food options. You get a lot of salt, you get a lot of sugar, you get a lot of oil, right? You guys have probably started to see this already. Maybe this process is opening your eyes to this, right? So what are you supposed to do? It can be kind of a pain in the butt, okay? Robbie, explain what you do.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different ways to deal with restaurants. So over the years, one thing is everybody here can use the diabetes card. And when you talk to the waiter or waitress and tell them, look, I have diabetes and my doctor has me on this special program, it's sort of much easier to make a special request and have them work with you. Because when you say, my doctor wants me to do something, that is a whole different ballgame, because nobody's going to argue with your doctor versus you just trying to be special. So for me personally, in the past, I've brought my own food to restaurants. That's worked. I've also just ordered something super simple on the menu. So my favorite thing to do is to eat, a bunch of fruit either beforehand or after. So to plan to get my calories from my own food source before or after. And then at the restaurant, I just order a very simple salad. I mean, it could be as simple as tomatoes and lettuce. It could be more robust and, add a bunch of veggies on there. Another thing pretty much every menu has a salad, and almost every menu has something like a baked potato and veggies that you can get. So steakhouses actually end up being one of the best places for plant-based eaters to go. You can always order a baked potato and steamed veggies super easy at a steakhouse. You can bring your own dressing. This is one thing I've done before. Like, you just put it in like a small container and bring your own dressing. You can bring your own sauce if you wanted to put sauce on top of a baked potato or something like that. So sort of ordering something plain on the menu and maybe bringing your own sauce is like maybe the gold standard, like one of the best things to do. Another thing is, sometimes people can, at a restaurant, is like, if for any reason it doesn't go well, let's just say for whatever reason you didn't feel comfortable saying something or whatever, it didn't go perfectly, like, it's not the end of the world. So, I think in the course we have a lesson about the 80-20 rule. Like, don't get too stressed about the little things here or there. Think about the bigger picture. So that's always something to remember.
Another thing that you can do too, if you guys are going to go choose a restaurant, and if it's somewhat under your control, Southeast Asian restaurants can provide you actually with low-fat, plant-based whole foods. That includes things like Thai restaurants, Burmese restaurants, Cambodian restaurants, Laotian restaurants. And I know sometimes they can be hard to find, but Thai restaurants are a dime a dozen. When you go to a Thai restaurant, you can order a green papaya salad. You can get a green mango salad. Those are raw options that don't actually have any oil on them. You can also get brown rice with a green curry, a red curry, or a yellow curry. And you can ask for the vegetarian version of that curry. It has potatoes. It's got eggplant. It's actually quite low fat. Sometimes they're going to use a little bit of coconut milk inside of the curry itself, but you know, it's as low fat as you can get. So Thai restaurants tend to be a really good thing. Like what Robbie said, if you eat before you show up to the restaurant, just watch what it does to your decision-making process, because you guys have probably been there before. You get to the grocery store, you get to a restaurant and you're hungry, and then you're just like, I don't care. Just put something inside of my mouth, right? And all of a sudden you're like, you kind of act like a wild animal. If you have eaten beforehand and you're like, let's call it 60% full, then when you show up to the restaurant, you just don't care as much. You're still there to eat. You can still eat some food. And like Robbie said, you can look for the baked potatoes. You can look for the simple things. You can look for the sides. But your decision-making process is a lot more rational, and it's a lot less emotional because your hunger is toned down. So those are some pretty simple options that will work. I think Mary said that she has an experience she'd like to share. So maybe can you unmute Mary, Robbie?
Let's see here, Mary.
I got it.
Cool.
I can speak to this because I just had the most amazing experience. So Robbie, like you, I eat a lot of raw food, but occasionally I'm like going for there's a vegan Ethiopian restaurant in town. And I just went there and they have this buffet at lunch and I was like, I'm going to get some of that. But anyway, so I know the owner and I asked her, I was thinking about my mom. For those who don't, none of you know me because this is a new group. I'm on here just to support my mom, Ruth. I'm not diabetic, but I'm vegan. So I asked the owner, I said, do all of these vegetable and legume dishes, do they all have oil? And she said, everything we make, like all of these dishes have oil, but less than other Ethiopian restaurants. She goes, but we have a lot of customers that don't want oil. And if you call a day in advance, we can make all of it for you without oil. I said, literally for 1 or 2 people, you do that? And she said, yes, we do, no problem. Or we can do no salt, or we can do no garlic. But I thought, so I called my mom. I said, Mom, this will inspire you to come visit.
That's terrific.
It is amazing how restaurants, I mean, that's unusual, but I would have never known if I hadn't asked that question.
That's terrific. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never hurts to ask. Never hurts to ask. And also, like, use the Facebook group, guys. Like, if you know a restaurant you're going to, post the menu in the group. Watch how, the community will chime in and give some really good suggestions. And when you walk into a restaurant with a plan, knowing what you're going to do, that's also a huge, huge benefit.
Now, there's one thing that's going to hopefully make your guys' life a lot simpler. I don't want to say too much right now, but we are working on a partnership with an app that is an incredibly powerful app that's going to help simplify your life living with diabetes. It's one of the functions of the app is that you will be able to search for restaurants in your local area that meet your specific dietary requirements. It's pretty darn cool. I'm not going to lie. And I've said enough. It'll be coming hopefully in the next couple of months. But point being is that we've heard this same sort of like frustration from a lot of people, and we're trying to do whatever we can to solve that problem, and hopefully it'll be solved real soon.
Sweet. Cyrus, let's just address some of the questions that come in via the chat box before I lose track of them, if there's under too many. But
yeah, go for it.
Should I be eating nuts? If so, what type? So you want to take that one real quick?
Okay, so here's the thing with nuts. Nuts are phenomenal. We love nuts. Whether they are, nuts and seeds, I'm going to put in the same category. The problem with nuts and seeds is that a little bit goes a long way. As we know, what we're trying to do is really maintain a low-fat diet because there's a direct negative consequence for eating foods that are high fat, even if they come from the plant world, even if they're nuts, seeds, avocados, coconut, or olives, okay? So yes, they're plant foods. Yes, they're generally much healthier for you than the animal fatty foods. But point being is that when you eat nuts, I mean, you guys have probably been there before. You have a couple of nuts and then you're sort of like, I want some more. And then you eat some more. Then you're like, those are really good. And then you eat some more. Then before you know it, you've eaten a cup of nuts and you're like, oh my God, what did I just do to myself, right? Nuts are very hard to sort of like control your intake of. So if you're going to eat nuts and seeds, just make sure that you use what's called the 2-thumb rule. So everybody take 2 thumbs and put 2 thumbs up just like this, okay? Put 2 thumbs up right in front of you, okay? 2 thumbs. This is the amount of nuts that you can eat per day that will still keep you, generally speaking, under 30 grams of fat per day. So take whatever nut you're looking at, whether it's a peanut or something, and just ask yourself, if I were to eat about 2 thumbs worth of that nuts, how many of those nuts can I fit in that same volume, in that same space? That's about the maximum that you want to be eating on a given day.
There it is. All right, so let's go back to that spreadsheet.
Yeah, Gina's like, yeah, here's my 2 thumbs. That's brilliant.
Does anybody have some bigger thumbs I could borrow?
Yeah, seriously. Okay, so here's a question from Ty Bennington. Tyler's been super active in the Facebook group. Super glad to see all of this activity. Okay, do you subtract the fiber from the carbs to get net carbs to figure out your carbohydrate to insulin ratio? Or do you use the total carbohydrates and simply ignore the fiber? As people with diabetes, we're taught to subtract the fiber, but which one's more accurate? Robbie, it's all you.
Yeah, so basically we use total carbs. So that's what we recommend. And that's really sort of basically what's standard. Everybody's usually talking about total carbs. So when you're going to compare to what's going on, it's just best to use total carbs. So that one is super simple. And it's a simple adjustment. I mean, basically, I'm pretty sure Cronometer's default is total carbs. But if not, it's a super easy setting to change. If anybody has any issues with that, just let us know in the Facebook group, and we'll tweak that. There we go. Look we have a special guest.
We have a special guest. This is my wife, Kylie.
Hello.
You guys have probably seen her in the Facebook group. She's a registered nurse. She's brilliant, and she's actually one of the group admins. So you might be seeing her chiming in every so often, snapping photos, and responding to a lot of your comments. She's part of our team, so just want to introduce her here.
Thanks. Hi, everyone.
We can't hear her.
I know.
Hello.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so she'll be around. Okay. Cool. So yeah, to answer the question, we're not going to use net carbs. It's what we've found empirically is that using total carbohydrates is just more accurate when you're eating a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. So just continue with total carbs. If Cronometer is set to net carbs, then you can undo that and set it to total carbs.
All right, next question. Is snacking not recommended? If it's okay, any suggestions for good options? I have a weakness for the snacks that are provided at my office. Okay, so here's my guess, is that when it comes to snacking, if you're in a workplace and you see snacks all around, it's things like nuts, it's seeds, it's candy, it's foods that have refined sugars in them. It can be a problem for 2 reasons. Number one, because they're not whole foods, and because they are either high fat or they are high in refined sugar. And then number 2, it can be a problem because when you're just kind of eating a little bit now and eating a little bit later and eating a little bit later, for those of us who are injecting insulin, it can be a pain in the butt to try and figure out exactly how much insulin to give yourself, right? So, you're human, we get it. Snacking is totally normal part of eating. But if you can try and confine your meals to 3 meals a day or 4 meals a day and try and minimize your snacking, it's going to make your life so much easier. It really will, right? If you're going to snack and you find yourself kind of just like having a little bit of an oral fixation in the middle of the afternoon, or you just kind of want to munch on something, that is a time to opt for non-starchy vegetables, okay? Celery, cauliflower, tomatoes, cucumbers. Those are all good foods to have kind of like in the middle of the afternoon when the snacking craving comes high. And if you do it that way, then chances are you're not going to get these weird and unpredictable blood glucose spikes that are going to drive you crazy.
Perfect.
We got 46 people on this call. This is making me happy. I'm liking this. Okay. Any thoughts on powdered peanut butter, which is supposed to be defatted? Sounds like it could be a very yummy addition to a smoothie. Okay, so you guys might have seen this stuff before. It's called PB2, peanut butter 2. It's actually pretty sweet stuff. And what they've done is they've basically taken peanuts and they've defatted them. So you end up with a powder that you can then reconstitute in water, and it turns back into peanut butter. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's like space age technology. If you want to incorporate some PB2 into this program, totally cool with us. We are huge fans of this stuff. It has much less fat than a traditional peanut or peanut butter. It's still got a little bit of fat though. So if you want to just add small amounts and put in a tablespoon here and there, go for it. It's totally fine.
Perfect. Okay, another question. We got a question here about oatmeal. Oatmeal for breakfast. Let's see. Wherever we said no oatmeal for breakfast, we probably have to adjust that. That must have been an error. But if somebody, we definitely recommend fruit first and foremost. But if somebody wants to have like steel cut or oat groats, that's totally a solid breakfast. No worries there. Let me take care of a quick question here in the chat box, then we'll move on to the spreadsheet. Somebody's asking, Rob, if you mostly eat fruit, where is your necessary sodium coming from, and how much are you getting per day? That's a good question. I can't say I've counted my sodium recently. I get all the sodium I need from Whole Foods. So I eat a lot of greens. There's sodium, natural sodium in fruits and vegetables. So I just get everything I need there. It's very simple.
Yeah, it's a great question. Sodium is one of those things that we've been taught to pay attention to simply because there's a lot of it around in packaged foods. If product manufacturers did not add salt to food, nobody would care about sodium. The only reason that sodium has become a problem is because there's so much salt in the food that we're eating, especially if it's packaged and processed. And we find that the more salt you take on, the more greater your risk for hypertension. That's the main culprit. So if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, just like Robbie said, plenty of foods have a lot of sodium. You can actually taste it. Celery has sodium. Red beets has sodium. Swiss chard has sodium. So if you're really slightly concerned about your sodium and you want to get a little bit more, you can eat those foods. But in general, don't worry about your sodium because it's not an issue.
Cool. Quick question here. Somebody says, what about dark chocolate? I eat 90%. You want to take that one, Cyrus?
What about dark chocolate? 90% dark chocolate. Small amounts are fine. It's not the end of the world. Usually dark chocolate has cocoa, what do they call it? Cocoa mass added to it. And it's a high fat, it can be a high fat food. So if you're just eating a small amount, I'm not going to split hairs. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. So
Okay.
is having non-starchy vegetables anytime, any amount you want, okay? And the answer to that is pretty much yes. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much yes.
It'd be pretty much impossible to overeat on non-starchy vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy those in abundance.
Okay. So Doug says he's really new to the program. My head is still spinning, but I really want to know about exercise before, during, and after. For example, before going on an hour-long bike ride, in the past would take about 15 grams of carbohydrate, typically one Nature Valley granola bar, assuming that is no longer okay. What do I eat before, assuming my blood glucose is like 120? How long before? What do you suggest if I'm going hypo? Okay. Can you unmute Doug, Robbie?
Doug.
Or maybe
Okay.
Doug.
Let's see if I can find Doug in this sea of people.
Hey, Doug, can you hear me?
Cool. Doug.
There we go. Perfect.
All right, so Doug, here's what you do. In the online course, I think it's lesson 5, core module 5. It's all about exercise. What are you supposed to do before, during, and after exercise for blood glucose control? What we have found is the most effective approach to exercising and doing it frequently on a low-fat, plant-based whole foods diet is you want to temporarily elevate your blood glucose to about 150 to 180 just before you start. Now, you might think to us, you would say, well, guys, you got to be kidding me. I'm not trying to elevate my blood glucose because the whole goal of this program is to keep my blood glucose within a narrower window from 80 to 130, right? But what happens when you exercise is that you burn through available blood glucose that's in your blood, and you burn through glycogen inside of your muscles, and you burn through glycogen inside of your liver. What that means is that your glucose is going to start diving, and it can dive relatively quickly. How many of you guys have been there before where you start exercising and then within 15 minutes you're hypoglycemic, right? I mean, practically everybody living with diabetes, especially type 1s, have experienced that. So a simple way to counteract that is to eat a meal. Let's say you eat a meal an hour to 2 hours before you go and exercise, okay? At that meal, under bolus on insulin. Doug, are you type 1 or are you type 2?
1.
Type 1, okay. So if you know your approximate carbohydrate to insulin ratio at that meal and you've used the decision tree to figure that out, let's say it's a 20 to 1, right? What I would do is I would inject 1 to 2 units less insulin at that meal and temporarily, purposefully get my blood glucose a little bit higher than I would normally want it. So it's a 150 to 180. Then when you start exercising, it kind of cruises back down. And over the course of the next 45 minutes to hour, it'll keep you within a normal range and it'll prevent you from going hypoglycemic. Have you been able to experiment around that at all?
I have. And
Okay.
I've done that. And sometimes I don't want to eat a full meal before I work out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I ended up going with like a granola bar, because it's a measured carb, even though it probably isn't the best choice.
Okay. So in that situation, if you don't want to eat a full meal, what I would do is I would go grab a couple of dates. Dates are like magical super energy. And people with diabetes, we've been told over and over, don't eat dates, don't eat dried fruits, don't eat raisins. Okay, it's fine. The people who push that information are not eating carbohydrate-rich foods at all. We do. So if you just take 3 or 4 medjool dates, each one of those contains on average 15 grams of carbohydrate. So you could just pop 1 or 2 or 3. It's not a very large volume of food. It'll bring your blood glucose up. You can go and exercise. In the middle of exercise, if you want to snack on 1 or 2 more to prevent yourself from going low, feel free to do that too.
So you don't suggest going for any glucose tabs if you're starting to go hypo?
I hate glucose tabs with a passion. If you really want to know. Yeah, I cannot stand glucose tabs. I would much prefer you eat a whole food. So yes, the answer is go for something like a date, go for a little handful of raisins is much better. You can even go for just a banana. It's fine, right? It's going to act a little bit slower than glucose tabs. There's no question about that. Right. But if you've done a pretty good job of trying to keep your glucose within the normal range before that, then hopefully you'll avoid going hypoglycemic to begin with.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd ask about how you carry dates in your pocket, but I'll figure that one out.
What type of exercise are you doing? Are you running? Are you in the gym or what?
I'm in the gym, typically.
Yeah, just keep it in your bag. Perfect. Put it in your gym bag.
No problem.
I do that all the time. For sure.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a question here about iodine, however you want to say it. So if you're not having iodized salt. So yeah, that's a good question. If you want to take a small supplement, I mean, that's okay. If you want to have some sea vegetables, you can get some more there. I mean, if you have a symptom, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but if you want to be proactive, I mean, go ahead. It's not really going to hurt.
Yeah,
only
in the grocery store,
you hurt, but small amounts.
In the grocery store, you can get this stuff called kombu seaweed. So it's like it's in a package. It's usually like freeze dried, and it's just like a dried seaweed. You can take that stuff and you can like sprinkle it on food in small amounts. Take a tablespoon here and there. It adds kind of a nice sort of a little bit sort of salty flavor to it. It's got a lot of iodine in there, and that's actually good for your thyroid health, and it'll keep you from developing an iodine deficiency, which can be a problem for people who are hypothyroid for sure.
Margie says, so if you eat celery juice every day, does that really increase your sodium too much? I would say the answer to that is having like celery juice. I have never seen somebody have too much sodium from drinking celery juice. So it's coming from a natural source. I wouldn't worry about that. Okay, let's see.
Let me just say one thing here real quick. If you guys are joining us on the phone, because I think there's some people on the computer and some people on the phone. If you're on the phone and you want to say something, I think you dial *6 and then you can unmute yourself. And if you want to ask a question that way, that's totally fine. So just let us know.
Okay, someone says, Cyrus, as you know, I'm mostly here because of morning fasting numbers. Why was it under great control doing McDougall for 1.5 years, and now since late August, it's always between 116 and 132, type 2 diabetic, March A1C 5.6.
Perfect. Jason, you're on the, can you unmute Jason? Because I've written with him back and forth on Messenger before.
There we go. He's unmuted.
Jason,
hey, Cyrus.
How you doing, buddy?
Good, you?
Good. So I'm glad you're on the call, actually, because I think you're in a pretty unique situation here where your glucose, you were following McDougall's starch solution for 1.5 years. And then what happened? Your fasting glucose started to creep up after that?
Yeah, as you know, I took days off, and those days off were binging, and that did make it go up for a few weeks. And then it would go back down to normal, down below 100. And then last August, I had a bad August, and ever since then, it's been off kilter, even though A1Cs are good. And I'm still doing McDougall. I've never quit, and I haven't had a non-vegan day since August 30th of last year. So.
Okay, and do you have an idea what your total fat intake is on a daily basis? Have you used Chronometer to measure that?
When I'm doing strict McDougall, it's generally below 10%.
Okay. It's generally below 10%. And you're a pretty active guy, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I've been, especially the last month, I've increased my jogging to about 4 times a week.
Okay. Increase your jogging 4 times a week. What are you on any medication right now?
No.
Zero. Okay. What's your average fasting glucose this past week?
I had a 116, a 121, and like a 120.
What's the last time that you eat food in the evening, time of day?
Generally supper around 5:30.
Oh, so you're not actually eating right before you go to bed?
No.
Okay. I'm going to direct you to a product. Okay, let me just pull this thing up here real quick. In your situation, I can't necessarily put a pinpoint exactly why your fasting glucose has gone up a little bit. It seems a little bit counterintuitive because if you're following a truly low-fat, plant-based diet, which I believe that you are doing a great job of, your fasting glucose should come below 100. That's what we're going for, right?
Right.
What was your fasting glucose before you started the McDougall approach? How high was it?
I very quickly tried their version of, the 60 carbs per meal thing, and it quickly went under control below 100. And then it started to creep up below 100 not long after. And then as soon as I went on McDougall, I was getting great numbers, always below 100, a lot of 80s, even some 70s. And then, like I said, for whatever happened last August, it's hardly ever below 100.
That is interesting. Robbie, you got any ideas here?
I mean, it might be worth it to do a C-peptide test or an antibody test. I don't know what happened last August, if it set the stage for slow onset of type 1.5. Or, just do an experiment. Try a week of eating much more fruit and like crazy low fat. Document everything you're doing in the Facebook group. Show us a level of 100% compliance, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I also, of course, have to more incorporate your version of lunch and supper too. But I'm pretty compliant as far as my low fat.
For sure. And no, and again, it's not like I don't think you're lying or something like that. It's just that there's several cases where we're working with somebody, they're super knowledgeable, they say they're doing everything, and then we say, hey, let's see some meals, and all of a sudden we see some things that maybe they didn't fully realize. So.
Mm-hmm.
Your A1C is 5.6. I wouldn't be that worried about it, honestly. But if you really want us to help you narrow this down, hey, fill out Chronometer every single day, show us exactly what you're eating 7 days in a row, and let's see what happens.
Well, last thing I'll say is speaking, so I won't keep taking up time. But how could I have a 5.6 A1C, but yet morning numbers almost always above 100?
Okay, so your fasting, your A1C value is basically an average of the total amount of hemoglobin that's glycosylated in your blood. So that's a fancy way of saying, imagine if your blood glucose was elevated only for a 2 to 3 hour period. And it happened to be that when you woke up, that was during that elevation. And then the rest of the day, the other 20-ish hours of the day, your glucose is actually within the normal range. Then effectively what you're looking at is just a short period of time where your glucose is elevated. And that's what's contributing to a fantastic A1C. Versus if your glucose was elevated in the morning and then it stayed elevated the rest of the day, you'd have a much higher A1C, right?
Well,
so it could be that you...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
Can you...
Norris, go ahead.
You can't ignore your morning fasting numbers because you have a good A1C, can you?
I wouldn't say we would ignore them. I would say you definitely don't need to put as much of a value on your fasting blood glucose if your A1C is already at a 5.6, right? Both of them matter for sure. But if your fasting glucose is a little bit elevated and you're at a 5.6, it would be something that's just like Robbie's saying, pay attention to the specific method that we are using, which is slightly different than McDougall's method because we're a little bit more fruit friendly than he is, right? So I would focus on that. And then a second thing I would actually do is I'm going to share my screen with you guys real quick. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yeah, we see your desktop.
You see my desktop. Do you see this window with AMLA on it? No?
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
Okay. So in the chat box, I pasted a link. And this link is for this product. It's called AMLA, which is basically Indian gooseberry. This is the single most powerful antioxidant whole food on the planet. And what this stuff does is it's a whole food version of medication. It drops your blood glucose value and it cuts your lipids significantly. So Jason, in your particular situation, given that your fasting glucose seems to be doing a little bit of a kind of confusing thing, I would start to incorporate about a tablespoon of AMLA per day. You can just put it into a fruit smoothie and, like mask the bitter flavor. If you do that, then I would be shocked if your fasting blood glucose didn't come down.
Can you just take it by a tablespoon if you want to do it that way?
You could. It's just got a really sour flavor. I mean, if you're a glutton for punishment, then go for it.
Yeah. Another quick question. Are you consuming grains right now?
Grains, yeah.
What?
What type of grains are you consuming?
I like oatmeal. I don't have it all the time, but I have some pastas, breads.
Yeah. All right. I mean, well, breads is something you're definitely going to want to cut out. And I'd also do an experiment of just taking out grains, just completely taking them out and seeing what happens.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
You guys, can I make a comment too? This is Teresa.
Please.
Please remember that the FDA requirements for the home blood glucose monitors are that they have to be within plus or minus 20% of a lab reference.
Yep.
So remember that there's going to be some leeway. It's not like having a multi-$1,000 piece of equipment test your blood glucose. So right now the Bayer Contour is supposed to be rated the most accurate, probably followed by a One-Touch Vario maybe, but even those can have variability in them. So I would tend to also agree that, you're looking at the A1C as the big picture and the average, and you're doing those spot checks. But remember that, if that lab value, if you're getting 121, but the lab value is 110, it's well within its 10 to 20%. So I would place more confidence in it. And if you need to, maybe ask your doctor if you can pop in and get a fasting drawn on yourself and see what the lab value is. Take your meter with you and have them put a drop of blood in your meter and see how it's testing against the lab reference.
That's actually a really, really good idea, because what you're getting at here is that your meter could be slightly inaccurate, which
Absolutely.
is a true statement. And maybe the actual fasting blood glucose is lower than what the meter is reading. Another person put in here, Gina said, maybe your meter is old. That's another option. Maybe you're using test strips that are expired. That's another option. What is the actual blood glucose meter you're using, Jason?
And I believe it's AccuTouch. I'm trying to actually look at it right now. You'd think I would know my own meter, but
that's all good. Do you have a backup meter, or a different one that you
had
could try?
this. Mine's a One-Touch Ultra 2.
Okay. Test strips are not expired, or are they expired?
They're not expired.
Okay.
And the lab, when I've went to the lab, I've compared them, and they've been, it's been within like 8 to 10 points. So it's been right there. And unfortunately, the lab did show, say a 115 or something like that.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
My gut tells me it's not the meter here. Most of the meters they're accurate enough, and they show a consistent trend. So you're exactly right. No meter is exactly right, but it's always ballpark. But I think the big thing here, Jason, is to cut out the grains, to stop the bread, and use Cronometer and take pictures of your meals and show us exactly what you're doing.
Okay.
All right.
I'll do that.
Cool. All right. So I don't know why I can't. Can you mute yourself?
Here, I'm gonna mute him.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna have a lot of questions, guys, and I know there's a lot of people here, so we're gonna try and move through them quickly. Cyrus, somebody's asking, how much AMLA do you recommend for everyone who has a fasting glucose under 100?
Yeah, I just typed it in the chat box. I said a teaspoon. So here's the thing with AMLA. Okay. Dr. Greger was the first person to sort of bring AMLA to the stage for myself. I did a whole bunch of research into this stuff to try and find out if it's actually the real deal. There have been studies which have shown that taking as much as a quarter of a teaspoon, which is like such a tiny amount per day, is more effective than the leading diabetes medication on the market. So it's more effective than metformin. It's more effective than glipizide. And taking as little as a quarter teaspoon per day, every single day over the course of 3 weeks, can drop your blood glucose from a fasting number of like 120 to 130 all the way down to less than 100. And a very convenient side effect of this is that it'll take your LDL cholesterol and it'll drop it by 30 to 50%. It is unbelievable what this stuff can do. One of the things that I will recommend is, or I will tell you guys, is that the product that I'm showing you is very bitter. Robbie and I are working with another friend of ours, and we are actually creating our own formulation of it. And it's going to taste much better, and it's going to be a standardized amount, and it's going to be something that we will hopefully have ready for you guys in the next couple of months. I'm super excited about this because I think it's going to be a game changer. Point being is that I would only recommend using AMLA if it's in combination with a truly low-fat, plant-based whole foods approach. I don't want you guys thinking, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and eat kind of an okay diet and then use this AMLA stuff to help bring my blood glucose down. No. Your diet is the cornerstone of the program. AMLA is just something that is an added benefit on top of that. That's it.
Okay, so we got a question here. Can we drink homemade juice, and how do we count them? So for juices, I say you just enter all the whole ingredients into Cronometer, and whatever that number is, just use that. You could try and subtract the fiber number if you wanted to, but I wouldn't worry about it. So I would just use the total carbs of all the ingredients you put in the juicer. Let's see, what else do we got here?
I got a question here.
Yep.
Brenda, hopefully Brenda's on the phone call right now. She says she's new to this whole approach, but she actually is trying to gain 5 to 10 pounds and lower her fasting blood glucose. So how is she going to achieve this? How is she going to gain weight without her fasting blood glucose going up? Okay. So here's a simple way to think about this. You can gain weight by doing two things, one of two things, three things. First and foremost, if you want to gain weight, a simple way to do it is to increase the amount of resistance exercise that you perform. Let me explain. Okay. If you're just saying, okay, I need to put on a little bit of weight, and you just eat food, chances are you're going to put on, by increasing your total calorie intake, you will gain mass. But if it's just based off of the amount of food going in your mouth, then you're likely to gain fat mass. Okay, you're going to gain more fat mass than you are lean body mass. So if you start with your energy expenditure and say, okay, I'm going to increase the amount of strength training that I perform, what ends up happening is that you create a demand for nutrients. So you're creating the demand at the muscular level. Then when you go to put food into your mouth, those nutrients end up going into your muscle tissue, and they do not create excess fat mass. So as a result of that, your muscle tissue actually grows because your muscle tissue has been challenged and is being fed. So I want you to think about your muscle as basically being the most important tissue in your body when it comes to weight gain, okay? So number one, make sure resistance training is part of your program. Number two, if you already are resistance training, push yourself just a little bit more. And by doing that, you create a demand for nutrients. Then number three, when you put nutrients into your body, you're going to want to create what's called a positive energy balance. And what that means is that you're going to want to eat between 200 and 500 extra calories per day. And by doing that, you're basically, you're increasing the total number of calories that you're putting into your body. But chances are it's not going to result in an excess in fat mass, like I said, because there's already a destination for those calories to go. The next thing that you can do too is you can slightly increase the total amount of protein-rich foods you are consuming. That will help. But we're not talking about, going and getting the collagen protein powder. We do recommend using a hemp protein powder. That's something that I found to be incredibly helpful for gaining a little bit of weight and gaining mass. You can also opt for beans and lentils. Those are two of the most powerful protein-containing foods on the planet. And they are calcium rich and they are iron rich at the same time. They are low glycemic and they will not spike your blood glucose. So if you were to slightly increase your calorie intake, increase the amount of resistance training that you're performing, and do a small modification and increase a little bit more of legumes, I would be shocked if you weren't able to gain a little bit of weight in this process without negatively affecting your blood glucose.
Cool. There's a couple more questions about AMLA here in the chat box.
All right, cool. What do we got?
AMLA just for type 2? Would a type 1 benefit from AMLA?
Anybody would benefit from AMLA. It's great. You don't have to have any condition to use AMLA. It's great for people. If you're a human being, use it. Again, it's very effective at reducing your blood lipids, and it's very effective at reducing your blood glucose. Type 1, 1.5 prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, even if you're just a normal person, you got no diabetes, it's still a phenomenal product.
And what about frozen AMLA?
Frozen AMLA from the same benefit. Yes, if you can get frozen AMLA from I guess you would just go to the grocery store and you would buy frozen Indian gooseberries. If you can find that, get it. It's great. No problem at all.
George says you can get some gooseberries in Ukraine. Is it very different from the Indian variety?
Good question. There's different types of gooseberries. There's one called Cape gooseberries, I think. Indian gooseberries are very specific. So make sure that it is the Indian gooseberry and not another type of gooseberry. It's not going to work.
Okay. How long does it take for AMLA to have an effect on blood sugar and LDL levels?
Blood glucose and LDL levels if you're using it every single day for a month, you will see a dip in your blood glucose cholesterol levels for 2 to 3 weeks usually, but make sure you do it for at least 30 days and hopefully that'll have a true effect.
Okay. And then, so how important is the protein powder to the fruit in the morning?
It's not the end of the world. It's optional. It's optional. The reason why it's in there is because it will keep you fuller for a longer period of time. Okay. If you add a little bit of protein powder into there, you're less likely to want to eat food 2 to 3 hours later. If you don't want to put the protein powder in there, don't put the protein powder in there. It's not a make it or break it deal.
Cool. All right. So we'll go back to the spreadsheet. Did we answer all of Brenda's questions?
She says, do I still need to have 30 grams of protein or can I have more? The answer is you can have a little bit more, again, through beans and or lentils. She says, I started using Chronometer and I'm well above the 30-gram mark. Not sure how to get this down as I'm eating mainly beans, lentils, grains, and fruit. Brenda, if you're on the call, can you unmute yourself? When you say you're above the 30-gram mark, you're talking about 30 grams of fat, I am assuming. Is that right? Let's see. Is Brenda here? Brenda.
Oh, there we are. I think I've done my calculations wrong. But I'm sort of counting, say, the 15 grams in the morning and then whatever I'm having. When I went on the Chronometer, again, I didn't know how to use it very well. But according to that, I was eating more than 30 grams of protein.
Oh, so it doesn't matter. Don't worry about your protein intake, okay? There's no cap on your protein intake, right? If you're eating 40 grams of protein, 50 grams of protein, it's not the end of the world. Again, what we're trying to do is by eating a whole food plant-based diet, your protein intake will be relatively low. It'll be much lower than it would be if you were eating a low carbohydrate diet for sure. Don't be scared of it being low because human beings' protein requirements are actually quite low, okay? So 30 grams, what we're suggesting is that 30 grams is actually the upper limit for your total fat intake for the day, not for your protein intake.
Okay.
So if you're going to eat a little bit more, if you're going to use Chronometer and you find out that you're using 45 grams of protein per day, don't sweat it. It's fine. Don't worry about that at all.
Okay.
Yep.
And even though I didn't put that on my list, my fasting blood sugars are always high. I don't know what to do about it. Yeah. How high?
How high?
Now, it's not the way that you tell me. It's the other way. It's around 11 to 13, whatever.
Are you type 1? Are you type 1 or type 2?
I'm type 2, but I'm wondering if I'm a type 1.5 because I can't get that.
Do you take any insulin right now?
Yes, I do.
What insulin do you use?
That's what I was saying, 30/70, and I think
Oh,
you mentioned I shouldn't be having that, right?
But how much? How much?
Well, it changes each day, but around what my fasting blood sugar is. So if it's 11, I'm taking around 12 units.
So that'd be, you take 12 units one time for the total for the whole day.
No, so I take it normally twice a day.
Yeah, so that's a lot of insulin and you're underweight. So looking like type 1.5.
All right, so basically what Robbie's getting at here is that you may not have type 2 diabetes, and you don't fit the profile of somebody with type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
You know, given that you're underweight, number one, given that what we need to do is a C-peptide test. Have you ever gotten that done?
No.
Okay. A C-peptide test, for, you know, those of us who are not too familiar with it, is a fancy super nerd way of saying how much insulin is your pancreas making.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you go to your doctor and you say, hey, doctor, I would like to get a fasting C-peptide test. And what they will do is they will sample your blood and then they'll go test it for C-peptide. And based off of that number, it will be able to determine, is your pancreas making any insulin at all? Or is it making small amounts of insulin? Or is it making a large amount of insulin? And that is a very, very helpful test. And in combination with your fasting glucose, we can help you understand whether you actually have type 1.5 or type 2.
Okay.
Yep.
So if I do have 1.5, I've got to change everything then, do I?
Yeah. So here's what I would do. Start with getting your C-peptide test. Okay. Once you get that result, report that result back to us. Number two, also ask your doctor, hey, can I get on a modern insulin? The 30/70 that you're on right now was developed like 30 years ago, and it uses this stuff called NPH, which is just an absolute disaster, okay? What I would recommend instead of using the 30/70 mix of NPH is I would use a basal insulin like Lantus or a basal insulin like Tresiba, Tresiba. Both of those are phenomenal. And then if you need a bolus insulin on top of that, use either Humalog or Novolog. Those would be my suggestions. And again, and you guys know this, Robbie and I are not doctors and we cannot actually practice any version of medicine. We're just sort of telling you what we would do in this situation.
Okay.
The key here is you got to go to your doctor and talk to them and about what's going on, get that test done. And there should be a dialogue there and they should be able to put you in the right direction, you know, based on these tests. And if the doctor's like clueless, then it's time to find a new doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just one more question. I think I asked in my questionnaire, how will I know then, because I've never done this, how will I know when I first begin how much basal I need to take?
So your doctor should give you a formula. They run a formula and they will tell you where to start, and then you start filling out decision trees and you figure out what's working and what's not working.
Uh-huh.
And it will be the same thing for the bolus as well?
That's right.
Yeah.
They'll start you out with a formula.
Okay.
So the decision tree is specifically designed to have you go through the process of you're effectively going to guess and check how much insulin do I need at this meal versus this meal versus this meal. And you're going to do it on repeat over and over and over and over again. And you're going to be learning every single time. So eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, oh, in general, this is how much insulin I need for my breakfast meal. This is my carbohydrate to insulin ratio in the morning. This is my carbohydrate to insulin ratio at lunch. This is my carbohydrate to insulin ratio at dinner. And it sounds like it's a really painful process. It involves a little bit of work, but once you get there over the course of a couple of weeks, it'll really make this process a lot easier.
And just so you guys know, like the overarching principle of what we're doing here is we are like empowering everybody to take charge of their own health. Like we're not telling you how much insulin to take. We're not telling you what to do because we're the experts and just do what we say. That's not what we're doing. We're empowering you to take all this into your own hands and communicate with your doctor as necessary. So your doctor will give you the starting guidelines, and then you are running your numbers and can communicate with your doctor as things change. And you can also communicate with the group, and we can say what we would do.
Correct. You know, if Robbie and I had medical licenses, we would be able to take you guys under our wing and say, okay, do this. But legally speaking, we can actually go to jail for doing that. So we have to tread very lightly on this. That's why we highly recommend working with your doctor. And if your doctor is not cooperative, then potentially find another doctor. But your doctor should be pretty cooperative. If you say, I'd like to get a C-peptide test to determine whether I am a type 2 or a type 1.5, usually they're like, hey, that's a good point. And then if you say, hey, I'd like to get on, I'd like to change my insulin because this insulin is giving me problems, usually they're pretty receptive to that.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Amy asked an important question. I'm on Levemir for long-acting. Should I switch to Lantus or Tresvia?
Levemir's fine. Levemir's fine.
Well, I mean, personally, I do not like Levemir. I mean, it doesn't work for 24 hours. Levemir.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Levemir. Yeah. Get off of Levemir. Levemir is not smart.
Yeah. So that's it just works for 17 hours, creates like a disaster of like when it stops acting, whereas Lantus and there's Tresiba and there's Toujeo, these are insulins that work for 24 hours. So it makes life a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah. The point here is that there's 100 different formulations of insulin, and pharmaceutical companies are constantly tweaking the formula to make it longer acting or shorter acting, or, more potent in the short term or more potent in the long term. And this is like 1,000 different ways to do it. Levemir only covers you for 16 hours. Human beings operate on a 24-hour cycle. If you have an insulin that's only valid for 16 hours, then every 16 hours you got to inject it. Sometimes you do it in the middle of the night, sometimes you do it in the morning. It's too complicated. Tresiba is a 24-hour insulin. Lantus is a 24-hour insulin. If you can switch to one of those, highly recommend it. It's going to make your life a lot easier, for sure.
Cool. All right. Let's see. George, I have a C-peptide 0.9, A1C 5.2, fasting glucose 78. This was taken last August. I don't take insulin. I'm always considered myself pre-diabetic. That's it. And 0.9 is pretty low for a fasting, but with your A1C being good and you're not taking any diabetes medications, seems like no issue there. So I wouldn't worry about it. Why are you both not on an insulin pump? I'll speak for myself. Personally, I never really liked the idea of having it attached to me. The multiple daily injections has worked very well for a long period of time. Like, why change something that's not broken? And personally, I think for exercising, using a long-acting insulin takes out a complicating factor. So you don't have to disconnect from the pump. You don't have to have different basal rates. You just have one consistent basal rate that works for 24 hours, and then you're always tweaking the ratios. So you're only tweaking fast-acting insulin. And when it comes to exercise, you're either tweaking the insulin or you're just eating more food. So to me, it's just less variables. And I think as far as like looking weird or not in public, like, is it any, I think it's the same amount of weirdness whether or not you're changing the number on your pump or if you're injecting a shot. Like, it's all the same thing to me. So I personally just don't see the advantages of a pump. And like, there's all these issues with the cannulas not working, and that's always an issue. And then you have less injection sites, whereas when we're injecting the needles, we can go all over the place. Cyrus is a legendary at injecting in crazy places. That's just my opinion. But we support people with the pump. We work with people who love their pump, and that's great. You can totally make it work. Some of our greatest success stories using a pump, so it's all good.
Absolutely, yeah. There's nothing wrong with using a pump. A pump can be very effective in many situations. I also just prefer not to be connected to something. I live a very active lifestyle, and I like to exercise, at least once a day, sometimes multiple times a day. And dealing with a pump and connecting and disconnecting, and it's just too much for me. This guy is everything I need. This is my man purse. I carry this with me. It's super simple. It's got my glucose meter. It's got my test strips, and then it just has a syringe with a small little vial of insulin here. So I just carry this with me. I put it in my bag. It makes my life super simple. So it's more of a convenience thing than anything else for me.
Cool. All right.
Okay, here's a couple other questions. Sorry, Robbie, did you want to say something?
No, let's go back to the spreadsheet.
Okay, spreadsheet here. So Brenda had some questions about how can I be sure if I'm a type 1.5 or a type 2. So hopefully, Brenda, that's a little bit more clear at this point, given what we were just saying about your C-peptide level. So
thank you.
get your C-peptide level checked, because that can be a really, really, really important indicator. If Robbie and I got our C-peptide levels checked, it would be a joke. It would basically be a 0. Neither one of us makes insulin. We're very well aware of that. As a result of that, we are insulin dependent. We will have to be insulin dependent until a cure for type 1 rolls around, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So it's valuable information. A lot of the times your doctors basically you come into the office and you show some signs of having diabetes, and they're sort of like, oh, okay, well, you have type 2. And you're like, how do you know that? You know, you want to run some tests and really like figure it out from like a laboratory perspective. Some doctors are more thorough than others, and some people end up with these vague diagnoses that you have to chase for years until a decade goes by, and you're like, well, I'm a type 1.5. That would have been helpful to know back in the day, right? So if you are unsure of your diagnosis, highly recommend going to your doctor and saying, hey, can I get a C-peptide test? And once you get that result, post it in the Facebook group, and we can help you figure out what does that information actually mean.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I saw a real important question come in. I want to answer this. And this is actually a material that we're going to be adding to the online course, make this more clear. Someone says, please define what you consider processed food. Is Ezekiel bread and tortillas processed foods? It's a great question. The answer is yes. It's technically a more processed food. Ezekiel bread, if you're going to have bread, is the best. There are some specific tortillas. I think actually the Ezekiel brand makes tortillas, which are very clean. But it's definitely processed. If it's changed form from the way it looked in nature, from the plant, from the tree, from the ground, however it came out of nature, it's been processed. So we want people to eat the whole form. So even smoothies is a form of processing. And I know lots of people are sometimes eating it to consume the amla, which is something we're trying to change that format. It's better to sit down and chew the fruit in its whole form. It's so much better. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, so let's go back to the spreadsheet. There's we answered 2 more questions on C-peptide, Cyrus. What is normal C-peptide number, and is a C-peptide test measuring circulating insulin? So why don't you explain what it's measuring?
Okay, cool. So the C-peptide, here's what it is. When your pancreas makes insulin, okay, so there are beta cells inside of your pancreas, and the beta cells, think of them as having these antennae, and they're just sort of like poking their antenna out into the bloodstream at all times. And they're sort of just sitting here and they're like, okay, what's going on? As soon as glucose comes into the blood, those glucose sensors in them, they're like, I see glucose. And then the beta cell has this like very complicated decision-making process where it decides how much insulin it's going to put into the blood. So if there's a lot of glucose floating in the blood, then the beta cells are like, okay, cool, make a lot of insulin. So then they manufacture or release insulin into the blood. Okay, so it's always in proportion. If there's a lot of glucose, they'll put out a lot of insulin. If there's a little bit of glucose, they'll put out a small amount of insulin. Okay, when insulin is released into your blood, insulin is attached to another molecule, and that other molecule is called C-peptide. So both of them get put into the blood, and then at the second that it is dropped into the blood, they separate. It gets cut. And then you have insulin and C-peptide, and they both go and do their thing. Insulin, as you guys know, is very effective at telling glucose to get inside of your muscle and to get inside of your liver. C-peptide doesn't do anything. C-peptide is basically just inactive Siamese twin that's just kind of floating in the blood, and it doesn't really do anything. So because insulin is active and then it degrades, if you really wanted to understand how much insulin is your pancreas secreting, you can't look at insulin because it's either there or it's not there. And it shows up and then it goes away, and it shows up and it goes away. All you got to do is look at C-peptide, because C-peptide is present in the blood for a much longer period of time. So if you take a look at how much C-peptide is floating in the blood, that gives you an indicator of how much insulin your pancreas is secreting over a longer period of time. So point being is that the C-peptide level is actually very effective at at instructing us how effective is your pancreas at actually making insulin. Robbie, what was the actual question about C-peptide?
That was it. The other one was, what's the normal C-peptide range? Normal C-peptide
range. Okay, so when you get your C-peptide measured, they're going to give you a number between 0 and 4.
Every test is a little different. but it's going to be roughly around those numbers. A type 1 is if you're 0.5 or below, you're technically diagnosed as type 1.
Correct. So if you're on the lower end of that range, 0.5, 0 to 0.5, you have type 1. If you are on the higher end of that range, a number of things could be happening. There's a whole bunch of different options, but you have to interpret your C-peptide in combination with your fasting blood glucose, in combination with your exercise regimen, in combination with how much insulin and medication you're currently using. So that number by itself is only definitive if it's a very small number. If it's very high or if it's in the middle of the range, we have to take other things into consideration. So that's why if you're going to get your C-peptide level measured, I would highly recommend posting the result directly into the Facebook group and tagging Robbie or myself, and we'll take a look at it and we'll try and help you understand how that information actually is relevant.
Cool. Okay, so for, Michelle Allen's asking us, how often should I be checking my blood sugar? According to the doctor, I only need to check fasting, but right now I'm checking fasting in 2 hours after breakfast. Basically, if you're type 2 diabetic, you're not taking any insulin or anything like that, checking once a day fasting blood glucose is just fine. So it's like not, you could test more if you like the data points and you find that interesting, but really the only number we care about is seeing the fasting number consistently come down.
Yes, and this is a very perfect example here. So Michelle was the one who posted this, Michelle Allen. And I asked Michelle, or in this questionnaire that she filled out, it said, list your most recent fasting blood glucose values here. So she put these numbers in: 187, 174, 139, 178, 146, 158, 138. This is what I see, Michelle. Your fasting glucose is on a downward trend. It started in the 170s and 180s. It's now approaching the 130s, 140s. At the same time, your post-meal blood glucose was up in the 180s or so, and it's come down now to the 130s and the 150s. So what this means is that your diet is actually improving your insulin sensitivity, and your glucose is getting better both in the fasting state and in the post-meal state. So I'm happy for that. We just got to exercise consistency and patience and watch as your numbers continue to move into a even lower and lower range.
Okay, so she's also asking a question about cravings, saying at breakfast used to be chocolate chip pancakes. So yeah, it's not, I think you can find a way to incorporate chocolate and work on your chocolate craving. That's for sure. Carob powder is a great way to do that. I mean, technically, everybody's got to know themselves. You got to look yourself in the mirror and be, okay, where am I struggling? What do I got to do to stick to this long term? If every once in a while you have to go eat a more processed meal, let's say you have to make yourself like some plant-based chocolate pancake or something, which is something I have seen before. It does exist. And you have to do that every once in a while in order to stay on this long-term, predominantly eating whole food, low-fat, plant-based meals. Then it's not the end of the world. So you can't really, if you're really feeling deprived and you're like not liking your food, then you're not going to stick to this long term. So we got to work on that. And I think just trying more recipes. If you go to forksoverknives.com, type in the word chocolate, you'll see some options. They're not like A+ meals, but they're going to be plant-based. They might be a more medium fat, and they're going to keep you on the right path. So I suggest using the Facebook group and searching online and playing around with new recipes. Cool. All right, Cyrus, you want to do the next one?
Yep. We have, okay, here we go. Lyle asked a question. Lyle, you said, if we continue with this subscription, will the current material continue to be accessible? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he wanted to say if I discontinue with this subscription. Is that right?
Yeah, so you lose access to the course.
Yeah.
The online material. So
correct.
That works?
No, I meant if we continue with the program, are we still going to be able to go back and take a look at, for instance, lesson 1? Is it
sure.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And the same with the summit, that'll still show up.
Correct.
Yeah.
We don't have to use it by a certain time or lose it.
Nope. It's all yours. You get to keep that as long as the summit is yours to keep, period. You can have that for the rest of your life. If, 6 months down the road, you decide that, you don't want to participate in this group anymore and you want to cancel the subscription, then at that point, the online course is no longer accessible.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep, makes sense.
Are you watching the summit videos, by the way? You getting anything out of that?
Well, I just started one. I'm trying to go through the whole course and get that done. I've had a lot going on with the diabetes, just changing. I've just recently gotten rid of 5 medicines. I just had to take charge. The same thing. If I can recommend anybody, if your doctor isn't doing what you think he should be doing, fire him. I had to go through some doctors, and the one I have now is at least very cooperative. I sit down and told him, I can remember because I first went to the McDougall, and he says, this is not going to work. So I brought in my new numbers. My A1C dropped from the mid-8s down into 6.5, 6.8, something like that. And and during that process, I discontinued glipizide, metformin, and Januvia. And no, I didn't do this, glipizide and Januvia. And then just recently, I discontinued the metformin with his okay to go up in my Lantus to offset it. I asked him a question, which I think most of the doctors will say that if you look at the information for both glipizide and metformin, it does not recommend that medicine for anybody over 60 years old. Well, I'm going to be 70 here in a couple months. And I asked him why. He says, well, we keep checking your kidney functions and so forth, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I said, well, right now you say my kidney is working great. Now, all of a sudden you find out it isn't. Isn't it too late then? He couldn't give me an answer. I said, I'd rather discontinue the metformin. The Lantus seems to have, Lantus and insulin, virtually no side effects unless you take too much. So it's worked for me.
Yes, Lyle, I'm really glad to hear all this. I had no idea that you were going through this process and you're cutting a lot of your medications back. That makes me very, very happy. As long as you're doing it and your glucose, your fasting glucose is improving, and your overall glycemic control is improving, I'm a happy camper. This is great news.
Thanks.
Cool.
Great. But your intuition is right, which is that these pharmaceutical medications wreak havoc on your kidney. Invokana was recently taken off not taken off the market. Invokana was recently shown to promote significant more kidney damage in patients that are using it than they previously thought. So it's sort of one of these things where it's like, oh, hey, sorry, millions of people that are using this medication, hate to break it to you, but you're now at an increased risk for kidney damage, retinopathy, nerve damage, heart attacks. Sorry. And it just frustrates me when I see that stuff. So you're doing a great job of trying to get off of that stuff as much as possible.
Well, it's interesting also because I was concerned when I first was put on Januvia, just looking at some of the side effects, but I went with the doctor, went on it. Last August, I had to have a pacemaker put in because I had an AV block appear in my heart. They could not tell me where that came from, but doing a little research on Januvia, I find out that I think it's 1% of people generally will get an AV heart block. And even though I can't prove that that was what it is, it's the only explanation I can come up with. And now I got a pacemaker to thank that drug for. So
very sad.
Not in a hurry.
All right. Food is medicine, baby. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cool. All right. Heather, should we introduce Heather Cyrus?
Oh, yeah. Let's introduce Heather. Okay, so there we go. All right, so I want to introduce you guys to Heather Harden. Hopefully you can see her video. She's got the trees in the background here. Heather is part of our team. She's one of our group administrators. Heather has type 1 diabetes. She's gone through this program. She has completely transformed her life. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. Go for it, Heather.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I am so sorry. I am a complete this was at a different time, converting between time zones. I am so glad that you guys made it to the webinar on time with me telling you when it was. Because honestly, ugh.
No worries. Anyway,
okay. Let's see. I started with these two last year. It's almost been a year. It's hard to believe, but I have been diabetic now for about 22 years, type 1. I was diagnosed when I was 6. typical tragic onset, you know, got terribly sick and all that. Started with these guys, and my A1C has dropped to 5.6. I have incredible energy. You know, I used to have trouble getting out of bed, just completely. Now, you know, I'm waking up consistently, able to work with them. It's fabulous. I'm working out like crazy. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and Heather's done a really, really good job of being very diligent about tracking her carbohydrates to insulin ratio, and it's climbed significantly at all meals, at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. And she's a perfect example of somebody who was following the sort of like, you know, carbohydrates are bad for me philosophy, and really sort of embraced the idea that actually carbohydrates are not only are they not bad for you, but they are actually the most important macronutrient to focus on. And by doing that, she's really transformed her entire process and is now, you know, like she said, tons of energy and is just a delight to work with. So if you guys see her in the Facebook group, she's patrolling that thing 24 hours a day. She's got a wealth of knowledge. If she didn't live with type 1 diabetes, she would be less valuable, but because she's already gone through this process and she experiences it on a daily basis, she has a lot of really, really, really good insights here. So hopefully the information she's putting into the group has actually been valuable to you guys already.
Cool. Awesome. Good to have you here, Heather. I'm going to answer a few questions that came into the chat box. So somebody saying that they had type 2 fasting blood sugar was going down and I was compliant, except I snacked on some peanuts in the evening and my fasting blood sugar level went up rather quickly.
Yep.
Was the peanuts making the less insulin so quickly? The answer is yes. Eating the fat will cause insulin sensitivity pretty much immediately. But it's okay. It can be corrected, so don't worry about it. You live and you learn. What do you guys think of cacao? Cacao is like a stimulant, and we're not really recommending cacao. Carob powder is a great solution for a chocolate flavor. And again, check out, make sure, based on what we're hearing today, we got to get some chocolate recipes. We're going to add some chocolate recipes to the online course soon. So look for that soon, guys. Let's see. Somebody asked, what are your thoughts on Victoza? You want to answer that one, Cyrus?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Basically, I mean, any of these medications are a sign that you're living with insulin resistance, essentially. Which is, I mean, that's the same thing with metformin. Like everybody says metformin is such a, you know, innocent drug. It's like the bottom line is if you need metformin, it's because you're living with insulin resistance. So this is something that we want to do our best to address. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, all of these different flavors of medications are pharmaceutical companies. I hate to break it to you. Pharmaceutical companies do not care about your health. They don't. All they care about is how much money is going to their pocket. And they're trying to come up with drugs that are going to prolong the amount of time that you can spend on this earth with a somewhat normal blood glucose. Okay. They're not getting into the root cause. They are not reversing the actual molecular mechanisms that are contributing to blood glucose issues in the first place. How do you do that? You do it by changing the foods that you're putting into your mouth. And I think you guys get that at this point. So I'm not going to harp on this too much, but regardless of whether we're talking about Victoza or glipizide or metformin or Invokana or any other flavor of diabetes medication, the goal is we want to get off that stuff. We want to get off of that stuff, and we want to do it as safely as possible. You want to use food as your medicine.
Cool. All right, we'll go back to the spreadsheet here. What do we got in here? Dr. Furman says plant fats are okay to eat, and that is animal fats that are bad for you. Why is this wrong and you are right? Okay, so good question. The bottom line here is that we are here to make sure you guys achieve your personal goals, whatever that goal is. So and we're going to help you every single step of the way, every day, in any way we possibly can. And so if you want to follow a Dr. Furman-like plan, and you want to eat some of the recipes that he uses and eat more fat and be far above the 30 grams, and it's working for you and you're achieving your goals, no problem. We're here to help you and support you in that. We love Dr. Furman. We're friends with him. Go right ahead. If you're on the path, you're doing that, you're trying that, and you're not getting the results you're looking for, that's when we're going to ask you to try and make some tweaks and try what we're suggesting and then see what happens. At the end of the day, it's not about who's right or wrong, one person's good, person's bad. So it's none of that. It's just, are you achieving your health goals? And we're going to work with you and make every tweak possible until that happens. So that's the bottom line in that case.
Yeah, Dr. Furman's he's a personal friend of ours. He's a great guy. He's a advocate of eating a little bit more nuts and seeds. And because we live with diabetes, we have a little bit more insight into the direct negative consequence of eating plant fats on your insulin sensitivity. So if you can try and keep it down to a little minimum, then it's gonna benefit you for sure.
Okay, so we got somebody submitted a lot of questions. We're gonna try and fire through these real quickly. Why does fructose get metabolized differently than carbs? Can you answer that in 10 seconds, Cyrus?
Yeah. The correct question is, why does fructose get metabolized differently than glucose? I could teach a whole course on this. Point being is that fructose does not require insulin to be utilized for energy. Glucose requires insulin. We also have to be very, very, very specific in our language when we're talking about fructose. Fructose from a sugar-sweetened beverage, fructose from a refined source like you find in a packaged product is deadly. Fructose in this guy is not harmful. In fact, fructose in this guy is very helpful to you. So we have to use a modifier when we use the word fructose. It's either refined fructose or it's whole fructose. This is whole fructose, poses zero threat to you. Refined fructose is really the stuff that we have to be very careful of.
Cool. Okay. Which are worse, processed sugar or oils? They're both bad. Just get away from both of them. Is it normal to have to make a trip to the restroom in the middle of the night to pee when we eat plenty of fruit or starch for dinner? Or should I cut down so I don't have to wake up? I go to the bathroom probably about at least once a night, so I'm not worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
It's actually a sign of being hydrated. It's a good thing.
Yep. How can someone supercharge their insulin sensitivity when they've been at this lifestyle for years already? I mean, the quick answer is to try and get your diet as whole as possible, as clean as possible, and exercise. Those are the two things. It's going to do that. And you could try different forms of exercise, like putting on muscle is actually going to have a big impact, as well as endurance. Is there a way of eating the most helpful for all humans? I mean, it's a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. Super simple there. Check out the Blue Zones if you want to learn some more about longevity and this approach. Some what I eat in the day videos show blood glucose readings that are not in optimal ranges. Is there an advantage to being able to burn carbs and fat efficiently? So I think you might be referring to my videos here, and as a type 1 diabetic, nobody's going to have perfect readings. No type 1, I mean, maybe Dr. Bernstein, if you're eating 0 carbs, you're just on a flat line, like 80 something all day, that's separate. That's a whole other story. But if you're trying to eat a low fat, plant-based whole food diet and trying to manually inject insulin as a person living with type 1, you're going to see highs, you're going to see lows. It's just the reality. It's a difficult thing. Let's see. Advantage of burning carbs and fat efficiently. Cyrus, so I just quickly address how that's not possible.
Yeah. Okay. So if you adopt our methodology, your ability to consume fat goes out the door. It's just part of the process. Think about it this way. Glucose and fatty acids hate each other. They have hate each other from the beginning of time, and they will hate each other until the end of time. And the reason is because from a chemical perspective, the two of them are completely, they cannot interact with each other. So if you are eating a diet that is optimizing your carbohydrate metabolism, then it will get in the way of your fat metabolism. That is just a natural byproduct. Okay. The exact opposite is true. If you're eating a diet that is optimizing your fat metabolism, it's going to impede your carbohydrate metabolism. That is a true statement for all of biology. It happens in monkeys, it happens in dogs, it happens in worms. The fact of the matter is that carbohydrates and fat hate each other. They are constantly in a war with each other. And what we're doing is we're optimizing your blood glucose control. We're optimizing your carbohydrate metabolism. And so a natural byproduct of that is that when you do consume a little bit of fat, it's going to have a dramatic measurable result or measurable effect on you.
Yeah.
I wish I could handle that, and I wish I could make it good for both, but I can't.
Yeah, and the bottom line is there's nothing that's ever happened special to anybody doing a middle-of-the-road diet. You'll find sensational results, people doing a Bernstein super low-carb approach. You'll find the sensational results on our end. We're just here saying that we get all those sensational results without a bunch of side effects. So actually, all your side effects are positive.
Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a question here about what's the question? My post-blood glucose meals at my post-meal blood glucose at 2 hours is high, and then it comes right back down into the normal range. Is this normal or is this not normal? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a graph of what happens to your blood glucose as a function of your increasing insulin sensitivity. Okay. So on the x-axis here, we have time. Okay. And on the y-axis here, we have blood glucose. So this is time after you've consumed a meal. So here's generally what happens. When you are insulin resistant, your glucose does this. It goes up as soon as you eat a meal, and then it stays high, it stays high, it stays high. It kind of maybe does this thing, kind of does this thing, and it stays high. Okay. This is classical insulin resistance. This time period on the x-axis could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours after you eat a meal. Okay, this is classic insulin resistance here. If you become more insulin sensitive, then this is what will start to happen. Your glucose will rise to begin with, and it might go up just as high, but then it'll fall a little bit quicker. Okay, that's step one. As you gain more insulin sensitivity, then it'll do this. Your glucose will come high, and then it'll come back down even quicker. And as you gain more insulin sensitivity, then it'll start to do this, where it won't spike as high, and then it'll come right back down. Okay? So over the course of time, what you end up finding is that your glucose is moving in this direction. Okay? What that means is that it's getting lower this way, and it's affecting you. Sorry if that doesn't work. It's affecting you for a shorter period of time. Okay. So a lot of you may be experiencing, maybe you're here at this blue curve right now, where you're saying, oh, well, this is kind of annoying because I'll eat some food and then I will spike, but then it'll come down a little bit quicker. Some of you might be at this stage right here where it's still spiking, but it's coming down faster. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about this. This is totally normal physiology. Over the course of time, it might take weeks, it might take months. You'll get to this point where you're operating in this orange range, where your glucose comes up a little bit and then it comes right back down. That is where we want to keep you. This will happen more frequently. And over the course of time, as you decrease your level of insulin resistance and your need for either oral medication or insulin, you'll constantly be moving in this direction, and that's a good thing. Okay?
Cool. Okay, so I'm still going through this list of questions here. Let's see. So let's see. Is there an advantage? Is there an explanation for getting acetone breath after a meal or during exercise while still having a normal blood glucose under 130?
Okay. Is there an explanation for, let's see that, where is that?
It's on line 15.
Okay. For getting acetone breath after a meal or during exercise while still having a normal blood glucose. All right. I'll do this real quickly. When you are on a ketogenic diet, I don't know, maybe you guys have interacted with people who are on a ketogenic diet, or maybe you've been on one yourself. Okay. Pay attention to your breath. Okay. People who are on ketogenic diets, when they breathe, you're sort of like, whoa, they've got a very, very particular odor to their breath. And that odor is called acetone. Okay. acetone is a ketone body. It is one of the 3 ketone bodies. And what that means is that when you're producing ketones, acetone ends up coming out on your breath. Thank you. As you get farther and farther away from ketosis, and as you become more insulin sensitive and you're starting to eat these guys instead of eating high fat foods, right here, then that acetone breath goes away. So if you're still experiencing a little bit of that acetone breath, I think that may be just something that's temporary and is going to fade away over the course of time. That would be my first guess. So don't worry too much about it right now. If your glucose is in range and you're eating a low fat diet, then that residual acetone breath that you have is hopefully just going to fade away and you're not going to worry about it over the course of time.
Does bad food combining affect blood glucose?
What would you say to that, Robbie? It's a tough question.
I would say not really.
Yeah.
Not really. I wouldn't worry about it. Have you guys ever heard or seen people get little red bumps on their face, usually around eye area after a high carb meal? I personally have not seen that. I think if that is happening, I would guess that it has more to do with a food sensitivity or allergy of some sort than it is that the meal contains carbohydrates.
Can I brag here for a second?
Please.
I'm in Davis right now, which is like 2 hours away from my house. It's close to Sacramento. I went into my sister's backyard. She's got a fig tree, a mulberry tree, 2 peach trees, 2 pomegranate trees, an apricot tree, and a nectarine tree. I just stumbled across her nectarine tree, and she's like, "Oh, we have nectarines." There's literally like 150 nectarines on the tree itself. And I was like, "No, I don't think you have that many." Meanwhile, I'm going out with a box and I'm just like piling them into the box. So this is my second nectarine of the season and I'm in love right now. So if you see me enjoying this, then I'm sorry to brag, but it's tasty.
Hilarious.
So upset we don't have any nectarines on our tree this year at all.
I stole them all. Sorry.
Thanks.
My sister's tree took them.
Okay, so we have a question that obviously wants to be confidential, not identified to a person. It says, when I increase my fruit intake, I experience a lot of vaginal itching without an infection. Will my body adjust or should I back it off?
Okay, so when I increase my fruit intake, I experience a lot of vaginal itching. Okay, so obviously we're going to de-identify this. We're not going to say who this came from. If that is happening, I've heard of this happening actually in the past. Usually when there's some kind of excess like vaginal redness or discomfort, sometimes that's related to a candida overgrowth. And candida overgrowth is usually facilitated by a diet that is high in refined sugars. So when you're eating plant-based carbohydrates, usually that problem doesn't roll around. But if you are noticing that there is a little bit of like redness and tenderness in your vaginal area as a result of eating more fruits, what I would do is decrease your fruit intake and increase your intake of starch foods, potatoes, squashes, turnips, parsnips, rutabaga, things that grow in the ground. If you eat more of those, then chances are that that problem may go away over time.
Cool.
Also, okay. You guys, TMI is okay. If you're having something you need to ask a question about, go ahead and ask. So good job.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, let's see.
Okay, just so you guys know, I have to get off the phone in like 2 minutes here, but I'll let this call keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going here. In a program for insulin resistance I took before, I was to keep blood glucose below 110. Is there a number I should keep my blood glucose below, or should I not be overly concerned with that? As far as I understand, a high protein diet can increase insulin resistance. Does that include plant-based low-fat sources such as beans? Okay, this person, I'm not sure if they are type 1 or type 2. But the bottom line is, let's pretend they're type, let's see, pre-diabetes. Okay, I got the answer, pre-diabetes. In this case, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's focus, again, blood sugar, blood glucose is, for somebody living with pre-diabetes, is not the disease. It's not the problem, it's a symptom. The disease is insulin resistance. So we have to do everything we can to address insulin resistance and not worry about the blood glucose in the short term. We're fixing the cause, we're fixing the problem. So focus on mastering this diet, mastering what we're saying, learning how to love your food. Don't worry about blood glucose if you're living with prediabetes right now. Master this diet, and let's figure out what happens in a couple weeks, and then test your blood glucose, and it should be below 100. Should be nothing to worry about. So that's the answer to that question.
I might cut you off here for a second, Robbie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I got to run right now. You guys continue to chit chat here. You got a couple of experts in the room, so they should be able to handle all your questions. I am absolutely loving what I'm seeing in the Facebook group. So if you guys have been participating in that, please continue to post your own original posts. Please continue to comment on other posts. I see a lot of interaction, and I really love it. You guys are really supporting each other, and that's a very important part of this process. I really am very pleased by all of the activity that I see in that group. So please keep it strong. Absolutely loving what you guys are, the amount of change that you guys are really putting into your lives in a short period of time. And I couldn't be happier. I really couldn't be happier. So keep going strong. If you guys need any more help, just go straight to the Facebook group, and we're there for you as much as we possibly can be.
Cool. Cyrus, make sure I'm the host. I don't think I'm the host.
All right.
Okay,
you
so
can do that on your screen, go to Manage Participants.
Participants.
And then on bottom right, it says, take host or something like that. See that?
No, it says mute me or raise hand. I think when you leave, it might automatically make me the host.
Okay. All right, I'll sign off. I'll see you guys soon, and keep working hard. You guys are crushing it.
Okay, if it does end when Cyrus leaves, then we'll answer questions on Facebook. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Sure hope not. Okay. If it does, write me in Slack, Robbie.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Cool. Okay, so back to the spreadsheet here. Let's see. I think we answered this. My post-meal sugar levels 2 hours skyrocketed by the third hour. Yeah, Cyrus answered that. Okay. I have very dry mouth, so I use when I sleep. Will that be a problem? Why is hemp protein powder good but not hemp seeds? Okay, that's the key question here. So the hemp protein powder basically has the fat stripped out of it, whereas whole hemp seeds is a high-fat food. So that's the simple solution there. So you really got to limit hemp seeds, but moderate protein powder is fine. Plus, nobody wants to eat a ton of protein powder, so it's hard to overeat that anyways. Let's see. As far as dry mouth, don't worry about it, but that should improve over time. I see this person is eating eggs and toast right now for breakfast. So when you start getting rid of those foods, dry mouth symptoms are going to improve for sure, 100%. Okay, so back to the chat box here. Have we seen this program eliminate thyroid disease? I can't say that we have. Somebody interesting to learn more about that from, if you're interested, is Medical Medium. Anthony William has interesting information on that. He has a book coming out about thyroid disease. He's got a free radio show you can listen to on his website. So check that out for some inspiring hope there. Okay, is 5% fat better than 10%? That's a good question. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Especially for women, I think more of a moderate fat, instead of going zero overt fat, is probably a better thing. But again, it's a case-by-case situation. If you're experiencing a certain symptom or something, then we got to address it. But in general answer is no, it's not necessarily better. They're both good for sure. Okay, what are your rules of thumb for mealtime insulin dosing based on blood glucose levels? So is Doug still in this room? Is this the same Doug we talked to earlier that asked this question? If so, unmute yourself.
There you go. Yes, Robbie, that was me.
Okay, all right, so you're asking insulin dosing. So yeah, so this is important. This is a lesson we're adding to the online course very soon, but it's about insulin timing. So you're a type 1, correct?
Yes.
All right, so here's the key. If you want to prevent a huge spike, is you gotta dial in the insulin timing. So people make the mistake, let's say you inject insulin and then you start eating food right away. In that case, that is as if you never injected insulin. The insulin's not doing anything for probably like 10 or 15 minutes. But let's say you inject insulin. Let's say your blood glucose is 120. You inject insulin. You wait 15 minutes. You test yourself again. Depending on the trend of your blood glucose, you might be 130. You might be 140, even though you just injected insulin, an entire dose for your meal, and you waited 15 minutes. In that case, you got to wait another 15 minutes. So the key is your blood glucose needs to be 120 and going down before starting to eat. The insulin needs to be working. And what people are shocked to find out for some people, how long, especially in the beginning when they're a little bit more insulin resistant, how long it actually takes for the insulin to start doing anything. And some people, sometimes in the morning, because of the dawn phenomenon and other reasons, it's actually even more so an issue. And you have to wait, even if you're perfectly in range, you might need to wait 30 minutes before you can start eating. So the key here, everybody's different, is you need to objectively find out what's going on in your body. So you test yourself, you inject insulin, you set a timer for 15 minutes, you test yourself again, you see what happened. If you're the same or you're a little bit higher, then maybe test yourself in another 5 minutes or another 10 minutes and figure out at what time of day and based on the activity level you've been doing, you start to intuitively figure out how long does it take for insulin to work for me, and then that's how you can prevent these spikes. It's 100% insulin timing. I've seen this over and over and over again.
That's a big problem for me. Do you rely on the Dexcom for that, or do you finger stick?
Finger stick. 100% finger stick. Dexcom's too far delayed.
Okay.
If your Dexcom if let's say your Dexcom is like 120 with an arrow going down, you might be already low at that point. You know, you're 10, 15 minutes behind. So this is something you got to use with the finger prick. And over time, you don't need to always do the finger prick. But in the beginning, this is a learning activity. And then over time, you sort of know intuitively how to do things. And, you know, when you're starving, you know, you start eating the vegetables first and, you know, start snacking on those things versus eating the things that are going to shoot your blood glucose up because insulin's not working.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right. Let's see here. Will someone go back and forth on this chart? That was from Kim. I'm not sure which chart you're talking about. You want to unmute yourself? Yeah.
The one that Cyrus was drawing with the bell.
Got it, right. So if somebody was not compliant and started doing things that caused insulin resistance again, yes, they would go towards where they were previously, 100%. So you can totally go back and forth. It's based on what people are eating, how their compliance.
Even if you're compliant, though, what if you're compliant and you're still doing it? You're still not seeing.
Are you type 1 or type 2?
I'm type 2.
Okay. And what are you seeing so far?
I'm seeing good control on some days, and I'm compliant. And some days it's just not there, and I'm exercising and keeping the carbs or the fat grams down, sometimes below 10 grams. I mean, I'm really keeping them down.
Okay, so, and what medication are you using, if any?
I'm just using Lantus once a day.
Okay, how much?
5 units, that's it.
Is that in the morning or the night?
Honestly, take it in like around lunchtime.
Okay, lunchtime every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when your numbers are off, like what type of numbers are we talking about?
I don't have like really high numbers. I'm not by my glucometer, so I can't look. So, like for instance, yesterday morning's fasting was 187. No, not that high. I forget. It was high, but it wasn't. It was like 125 or so, and
okay.
then today it was 91.
Okay. Do you think you have weight to lose, or are you kind of like at a good weight?
Actually, I'm underweight.
Underweight. Okay. All right. I really think you should get a C-peptide test. Can you do that? Let's figure out what's going on, because there's a good chance that it's nothing you're doing wrong. It's nothing to do with compliance. It
Yeah.
simply could be just a factual situation where your pancreas isn't producing enough insulin. And if that's the case, we have to deal with that reality, and then we have to, work with your doctor and address that.
Okay.
So that's step one.
Okay.
All right, cool. So keep us posted. If your doctor isn't willing to get you that test for whatever reason, let us know on Facebook. We'll give you a link. You can buy the test for $99 and get it on your own.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's see. Won't fasting cause liver to produce glycogen and elevate blood glucose, type 2? I'm not the fasting expert here. Cyrus actually did his PhD on some of that stuff, so go ahead and ask that in the Facebook group. But basically, fasting, we were just in South Dakota working with some researchers, and the amount of research, peer-reviewed research of the effect of fasting, improving people's health and lowering blood glucose is extraordinary. So doing the fasting as laid out and recommended, the 24-hour fast in the online course, should do nothing but good things. But as far as the details of glycogen and what's happening during the fast, I'm not gonna try and go there. But I mean, maybe the science is important to you, Giselle. But if it's really just a general thing, the general guideline here is just try it. Like, it works. Don't worry about it. Okay. Prita, I thought blood sugar levels dropping after a meal was due to my pancreas putting out more insulin, not what I just explained. So the doctor who told me that was wrong. Okay, that's good. Let's see, what else? A lot of comments. Have you done a video on the good and bad protein powders? Okay, no, we haven't made a video on good and bad protein powders. But the bottom line is the hemp one that Cyrus recommends, he's been through a lot of years of experimentation, and that's just the cleanest one. And in pretty much every other product out there, you're going to see a long list of ingredients. If you look at the one that Cyrus has in the online course, it's just one ingredient. I mean, it's the cleanest thing. So just have that. There's a link in the online course to the product on Amazon. It's just one ingredient and super simple, super clean. Let's see. Why do we eat corn? So Brenda says something about corn. Personally, I avoid corn, personally, because of the GMO thing. So if that's a concern for you, don't eat corn. 100%. That's a personal choice. Let's see. I'm just reading through the comments here. Is fresh green juice of cucumber, celery, green apple, ginger root, greens okay to drink in the afternoon? I would again, just try and focus on whole food. Like, I would focus on, in the afternoon, we're trying to teach people to eat their substantial amount of calories in the afternoon at lunch, and substantial amount of breakfast, and then dinner is much more, veggie based. And if you start having juices and low amounts of calories in the afternoon, then that's what leads to cravings and things going awry late in the evening. So I would suggest whole food, eating whole food, chewing it, calorie dense, and focus on that. Also, just for anybody living with diabetes, blood glucose challenges, juicing fruit is just not a good situation. The only exception would be orange juice. And that's fresh squeezed from home where you get the pulp. And even in that case, I would recommend having it like with a dinner or something, like with a salad, which is something I've done before and it's good. And my blood glucose is pretty steady there, but I wouldn't, even if it's fresh squeezed OJ with pulp in the morning, I wouldn't just wake up in the morning and drink a huge glass of orange juice. It's just not ideal. Okay, let's see. Somebody's saying, that's a private message, so I won't respond to that. Let's see here. Thanks so much. Doug's question on insulin and how much to take. The answer you gave about when to take insulin, is it just for type 1 or for everyone? Okay, so if you're living with type 2 diabetes and you're taking fast-acting insulin, you're taking Humalog, Novolog, sort of like mealtime insulin, then it would apply. Type 1, type 2, type 1.5. If you're taking fast-acting insulin for a meal that you're about to eat, then yes, that would 100% apply. That insulin timing rule does not apply to long-acting insulin. It's irrelevant for Lantus, Tresvia, Toujeo, doesn't apply. Okay, let's see here. So somebody says, I prefer the raw vegan diet, but recently I've had some gut irritation with raw vegetables. That's a specific case where maybe you got to figure out which foods. Like, I doubt that, watermelon or bananas is causing a gut irritation. There's got to be some specific food there, some allergy or something that's probably causing that. So you kind of got to do a elimination type of diet thing. Keep your diet super, super simple and then add in things. In a lot of these cases, if you just use your intuition, most people can figure it out. Our intuition, we know more about our own bodies and ourselves than we give ourselves credit for. So if you listen to your gut, like, you know what, I think it's this, I think it's that, and you cut it out, usually we can solve these problems. In a lot of cases, it's just that people don't want to cut out things. They know they have to give out something that they love, even though their gut tells them it's not good for them. So you got to do that hard work and try and figure out what it is. So that's the answer to that question. Let's see. Is there a difference between different types of fats? Do they all cause the same amount of insulin resistance? That's a good question. I would let Cyrus get into the specifics on that one. But in general, any amount, you can see it in your own body. Cyrus and I see this all the time when working with people as type 1s. We see it in our own body, how much insulin we're injecting, what our blood glucose is, and how much fat we're eating. We see it. It does not matter what fat it is. It doesn't matter if it's walnuts, almonds, coconut meat, avocado. It doesn't matter. This stuff increases insulin resistance. So that's the short answer there. Each time I eat potatoes, my blood glucose spikes. Should I avoid them? I already avoid grains. Okay, Ann, is Ann still on the call? Can you unmute yourself? I think you are on the call. Okay. Okay, are you type 1, Ann?
Type 2, I think, maybe 1.5, I don't know.
Okay, so give me an idea, what medications are you using right now?
I don't take any.
You don't take any? Okay. And how often do you test your blood glucose?
A lot, just to watch it. I've been very interested.
Okay, what type of numbers do you see?
Well, if I've been creeping up, but usually between 90 and 110 fasting, okay. But I'll spike to 280 with potatoes.
Okay. All right. Do you have any weight to lose?
No, I'm good or maybe a little under.
Okay. All right. Let's start with base number 1 here, like we're telling a lot of people. Can you get a C-peptide test?
I can try.
Okay, yeah, ask your doctor. If your doctor gives you any trouble, let us know. We'll give you a link in the Facebook group to order one.
All right.
But we gotta just understand the objective data, what's going on, and then we can help advise.
So that is a possibility of the 1.5 type.
It's possibility. It's a possibility. I mean, see.
I'm 63 now. I was told at 14 I was pre-diabetic, but then I would ask through the years and be told, no, you're fine, you're fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So your spikes up to 220 something, and how many hours after you started eating does that happen?
1 to 2 hours.
Okay, and then does it come back down all the way into range?
Slowly.
How long would it take for it to get down to like 100?
No. He's going to go on, and these are type 1 diabetics. This is type 2. I realize this at this point.
Let's see here. I wonder if there's a way for me to mute everybody. I don't know how to do that. Anyways, okay. So,
I don't know how long it'll go on for.
If whoever's talking about how long it's going to go on, you might want to mute yourself.
Huh? Baseball. All right. This is the guy from University of Florida.
That's me. I'm from the University of Florida.
That's cool. Us too.
Good. Where do you live now?
Did live in Gainesville, live in Vero Beach now.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
place.
it is. It is.
Do you have any questions for us before you go?
Well, I do actually. I was curious about having followed a little bit of Neil Bernard's stuff. I feel like he is a little different. Are you okay with eating like high glycemic index fruits like pineapple and watermelon?
So yeah, on a case-by-case basis, the answer is yes, if it's not causing somebody a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Are you living with type 1 or type 2?
Type 2.
Okay, and are you taking medication?
I take metformin, 500 BID.
500 how many times a day?
Twice.
So you have 1,000, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And, okay, and have you changed all your meals? You changed breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yeah, I have now, just. I've been following, I thought, a more careful vegan diet than apparently I have because I've been eating too much fat. So the Chronometer has helped me a lot.
Yes, that's a big deal. So when you start to make this just change and you really get rid of the fat, reverse insulin resistance, you'll be able to eat watermelon with no problem.
Yeah, because, you know, that's the other thing I was going to ask you about. I do think I'm a teeny bit underweight actually right now, and I'm finding I'm a little more hungry now that I'm eliminating fats. Any suggestions on that?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is probably that you're not eating enough calories from whole plant foods.
Okay.
So increase the volume of the fruits at a meal, increase the volume of whole potatoes, quinoa, rice, all that stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay.
When people start eating whole foods, the volume of fiber in water is so large that it takes some adjustment time to eat enough food.
How quickly do you usually see a reversal, like building the more mitochondria like we've been talking about and really getting the fat out of your cells?
It's completely dependent on how compliant you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go 100% compliance, I mean, boy, results happen quickly. People come to our 4-day retreat. The amount of change that we see in 4 days at our retreat when we fed them every single ingredient and they move their body twice a day is quite remarkable. So
awesome. Twice a day. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So it's totally up to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Cool. You got it.
Go Gators.
Go Gators. All right. Do you know how to mute yourself and unmute yourself?
Yeah. Let me flip.
There you go. Perfect. I'm glad. I just want to make sure everybody knows how to use our technology for future calls.
I'm figuring it out here.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. And so back to you here. So you're shooting up to the 200s, low 200s, and does it actually come back down to 100 at some point?
Shoots up to 280 easily.
280. Okay. And then would it come all the way down?
It will eventually. Yes.
If you like did nothing. But if, let's say you ate another meal, it just goes right back up again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's definitely get a C-peptide test, and let's take it from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So let's see. So the 2 tablespoons of chia seeds with fruit and protein powder breakfast. Okay. Yes, the fat in the chia seed is okay. Absolutely. It's a small amount. You'll definitely be able to stay under 30 grams and definitely most people under 20 grams. So don't worry about that. Okay. So I went through everything in the spreadsheet. I went through everything in the comments. Would anybody like to unmute themselves and ask a question before we go? And if this, or you could type something in the chat box or anything. Guys, like Cyrus said, I mean, we're just.
I've got a question, Robbie.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Trying to, I just went through that lesson on checking your basal level and in the fasting program and so forth.
Yeah.
I am only on Lantus, and I intend to try that intermittent fasting, but right now I've been making adjustments. I've had to go down even more just in the last 10 days as I've been on this program. But like this morning, I woke up with a 62, which was a little low for me. Really starting to get a little shaky and so forth. So I ate a banana. But if I go into the fasting program, am I going to have that all day long?
Yeah. So if you go to the fasting and you start seeing lows, then number one, you got to treat the lows. You got to eat something. Right. And number two, that's just a learning experience that, yes, that's the whole point of that fast, is to teach you that you're taking too much.
Okay. But so the thing of it is too, is would it be appropriate that, right now I'm taking 145 units one time a day. And if I was going to do a fasting tomorrow, would it be reasonable to say, okay, I'm just going to do 140 tonight and hope I don't have a bunch of lows tomorrow and I just sail through the day with no problem?
Yeah, I mean, if I was in your shoes, I would take like 100 and see what happens.
All right, that low.
Absolutely, I would just like be conservative. Now, Heather has a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah. If you're going to check your basal rates, you need to make sure that you have a couple of days to let the basal rate settle in too.
Yeah, I mean, for you, but see, like the thing is, for Lyle, and this is a type 2 here. It's not as it's kind of a basal insulin, but it's kind of also just treating insulin resistance.
Right.
Which is a little different than what we do, Heather. So in this case, look, we just gotta. It's just the best thing is to be conservative. I mean, if you go down to 100 and you're like high all day, you know what? So be it. You learn, and maybe you can go back up or something. But that's just to give you an example. My Lantus insulin for a 24-hour period is around 16 units. Cyrus's Lantus for a 24-hour period is like 11. Heather, what do you take for long-acting?
I'm on Tresiba, and I am kind of not super active right now. I'm at 10.
10.
For 20.
I mean, just to give you an example, like your volume of insulin is just crazy high. So it's going to drop, and it's going to drop quickly.
Okay. All right, appreciate it.
Yeah, so just be careful. Again, any point here you have questions or something, you can like check with your doctor, confirm with your doctor, make sure you feel good about it. But all I can say here is that being conservative is always better than taking too much. That's the bottom line when it comes to insulin. Cool. So does anybody else want to unmute themselves?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a few questions here. I had the question about going over 110, and it's really helped me to understand that I don't have to worry about it too much. But because I used to understand that, if you go over like 110 or something, you're going to increase your insulin resistance. But I guess that's not.
Nah. I mean, there's a small amount of truth that, yes, as your blood glucose goes higher, insulin resistance goes up, but it's not worth worrying about.
Not worth worrying about. Okay. Let's see, what was the other question? Oh, and
it's a completely different discussion because of having a little bit of insulin resistance because your blood glucose is high versus the insulin resistance we're talking about as a result of eating high-fat foods. It's like two totally different things in regards to
Yeah. So, because I got at one point where I almost had limited my insulin resistance, but I didn't know the fat thing. And I think I went and got the problem again. And so I've been working to get back to, where I was before. Let's see, the second question. What was it? Oh, raw sprouted buckwheat. I've heard that it can be somewhat toxic. Is it okay to eat that stuff?
Buckwheat?
Yeah, raw sprouted.
Raw sprouted. Yeah, it should be fine. Honestly, I don't know that much about it, but if you're not having any symptoms, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, great. Oh, and would you say it's more effective to go on a fruit diet rather than having some starches? Would that be quicker to get my insulin resistance taken care of? Or
you definitely see that you're a little bit more insulin sensitive on eating a fruit diet, but again, it goes down to like a personal situation of like what foods do you have access to, what program is going to be sustainable for you. The level of insulin resistance improvement, like the difference between eating fruit and starch is not very big. It's quite small. It doesn't really matter. Like if your carb insulin ratio is 40-1 versus 35-1 or 30-1, it doesn't matter. Like we're just trying to get people into the roughly ballpark good range. Like the ballpark range of how much insulin would you need to inject, how much insulin would your own body produce. So for type 1s, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. One more quick question here. I've noticed also when I fast, immediately after the fast, when I start eating some glucose, I'm less sensitive to insulin. Like it'll shoot up quicker.
Yeah, that's totally true. Cyrus is going to make a video on that. There's a biological explanation. I'm not going to try and explain it.
Cool. Thank you so much. Very helpful.
For sure. You got it. Anybody else want to unmute themselves or type in the box? Is type 1 hereditary? nobody really knows for sure. Nobody can fully explain what causes type 1. We have clients come to us, they got diagnosed with type 1 in their 60s. It's just like nobody knows. There's theories, there's people out there with theories, but people have some good theories, but nobody knows for sure. Let's see. Okay, nobody wants to mute themselves. That's cool. This is great to, oh wait, did you have something, Gina?
I do. I've been doing this diet for about 2 years, partly and thanks to you guys and your Instagram page, Robbie.
Good.
One thing that I found about a year into the whole process is I suddenly got a whole bunch of acne, and I haven't had that problem since a really long time ago. I'm almost 40. And I wondered if maybe it was because I wasn't eating something I should be eating. All along, I've never had like the hemp powder or any of that. I've just been eating food. And I don't eat grains or starches. And so I thought, well, maybe I need to supplement with zinc, because I put it on one of the Facebook pages and somebody said, try taking zinc. I take the pill in like 2 days, everything starts to get better. I'm like, why do I have to supplement?
Yeah.
So then I remembered about you guys recommending hemp powder, and I looked on the back of the label and there's some zinc in there. So I thought, well, maybe I should start taking that. Do you have any other recommendations, or is there anyone else that experienced this?
Yeah, good question. So the zinc thing, I know Anthony William is very strong at saying that pretty much everybody should supplement with zinc. So and his explanation is that it's basically just our food production system, our soil, just our food is not the way it's necessarily supposed to be. So in your case, I mean, again, so in your case, it worked. Like, it solved a problem that was happening. So that was important. We're not like necessarily promoting a lot of supplements here. We're trying to get people to focus on the diet first, and then as necessary, add supplements. I know it's expensive and such, but bottom line is I take zinc. I take B12. I take a little bit of iodine. So I think it's great that you're doing it.
Are you taking the iodine in the form that Cyrus recommended, the kombu seaweed, or are you taking like a kelp?
No, actually, I do it's like a liquid supplement thing. It's on the Anthony Williams recommended page. I just do a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did have another question, because I have wondered about whether or not my fat intake is enough. I was kind of curious what Heather was doing.
Yeah.
How much fat she's consuming. How much I need to be worried about that. I'm still a little overweight. I'd love to get rid of some weight. I lost 40 pounds immediately without even trying, and now I can't lose any more weight no matter what in the heck I do. I'm eating non-starchy vegetables all day long and only one fruit meal, and I still can't seem to budge the scale. I don't know. Anyway, and I thought, well, maybe I need a little bit of fat. I don't know. I have really bad migraines right with my cycle. There's 2 in a month. Do you think it could be the fat? Should I try to have some like hemp seeds or some, I don't know what. I haven't been having any overt fats.
Interesting. Heather, why don't you share what you do for OFAT, just so Gina can hear?
Yeah, my fat's actually pretty low. I will literally check it right now to tell you exactly what I'm doing. One thing that was interesting with me is I suffered horribly from menorrhagia before I started the program, and I had recently gone off of progesterone. I was taking it for years because my periods were just so horrible. I would be prostrated, unable to do anything. And this program really, really helps with all of the hormonal regulation. Personally, for me, I found.
I completely agree. I feel like in every other aspect, everything is hunky-dory. I couldn't be more happy. Except for the dang migraines, but I get them basically ovulation and the day before I'm going to start. It's absolutely a clock. And because I haven't been dealing with them, the only other time I've gotten migraines like this is while pregnant and before I ever started my period ever, prepubescent. I got migraines when I was really little. So I know that there is a little bit of a history there, but I'd gone, I was low carbing for 15 years and never had a migraine except for while I was pregnant. I've had 4 pregnancies. So anyway, I just didn't know if it had come up, if you'd heard of anybody else talking about it, if fat is something I should consider. I'm nervous about adding in the fat because I do love to eat my fruit. So I don't want to really throw that in there. Anyway, but are you eating any nuts and seeds?
Me? I keep trying to add them back in, but I just don't respond well at all. My average intake right now is it's kind of low. It's at 5%.
Okay.
Recently. So, I'm aware I'm not suffering from any ill effects having it that low. Right. All of my cycles are really regular. I'm not having any trouble. I just, a couple days ago, day 1, I was cramping, but it was only for like 3 hours and it was bearable, so I just went for a walk and everything was fine. So I do want to keep an eye on this and try to narrow down why you're still having problems. So, but no, off the top of my head, I can't.
Yeah.
So my headache's cleared up.
Totally fine. Thank you for your help, Heather. That's great.
Sure. And I mean, honestly, like Anthony Williams is a very interesting guy, and his information is his whole thing is his whole material is all about like mystery illness, like problems that people just can't seem to solve. So, have you read any of his material before?
No, I've heard you talk about him.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, but no, I haven't.
I mean, just
is there a particular resource you think I would benefit
check
from?
out his first book. Just read his first book and just see if anything in there is like, you know what? Wow, that actually makes sense to me. Some of that for some reason feels true to me, and I'm gonna try, a supplement recommendation that he then makes at the end of that chapter. Like just read it and see what happens.
Okay.
You know what I'm realizing is that some of these questions are in our box. So in the spreadsheet. So please keep going. What other questions did you have that we didn't answer? Because I'm forgetting. Do you have any other ones? I see the migraine.
Me? Myself?
Yeah, you.
Zinc, migraines, and weight loss. Those are my only unhappy things about this lifestyle. Everything else is so fabulous. I'm so thankful.
How much weight do you want to lose?
I want to lose 10 to 15 pounds would be great.
Okay. And what time of day do you eat right now?
I usually eat around, I'm not really hungry till about 11:30 or noon. And then I eat again around 3:30. And then I eat again around 7.
Okay. And are you on any thyroid medication or anything?
I am. I'm on Synthroid. I've been on that since I was 12.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. All right. There's a little bit of a connection there. So read Anthony's book and let's continue the discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Robbie, real quick, let me throw this in front of you. Some things that I do that I forget that I do them so regularly is I supplement with magnesium and sulfur. And those, thinking back, were actually 2 things that really helped my PMS symptoms.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Cool.
I'll look into it.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, guys. So I got to go here. So what we're going to do is let's keep this going on the Facebook group. Stay active. Ask us questions. We'll announce the next call, which will be a month from now. And look, like we are just here to support you guys in any way we possibly can. There's things you need from us, there's suggestions you got from us, write in the Facebook group, email us, team@masteringdiabetes.org. We want to help you. We want everybody here to reach their goals. I mean, that's the bottom line. People just came in this group, they joined the program because there's something they want to achieve, some goal, some adjustments, or maybe they just want to have a community maintain, whatever it is. We want to help you reach your goals. So stay in touch with us, and we'll see you guys on Facebook. Okay.
Right.
All right. Bye, everybody.